CNN's Chris Cillizza and S.E. Cupp commented on the future of the Republican Party. And this video, more than any other really, highlights how out of touch they are with modern politics and how little they know.
So when we think about the Republican Party post-Trump, it presumes that Donald Trump goes away in some way, which he may not. So what does that do? Let's say Trump sticks around and tweets. What does that do to the Republican Party as it tries to remake itself?
When you look back at big shakeups to the parties, you have to wonder and look back at what got them out of those shakeups. And there is one school of thought that it will take a Democrat to unite Republicans again.
Right.
Around, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, because when I'm a never Trump conservative, no plans on voting for Trump, didn't before. But when I watch some of the Democratic debates, I am reminded,
right,
I'm
I don't
also
believe
not a
what they
Democrat.
believe. Right.
And sometimes, it kind of takes a reminder, especially seeing all of them kind of out-left each other. So that school of thought that it will take a far-left, maybe progressive Democrat to unite Republicans around their core values again, that's a popular one. Others think it will take a sort of Mitt Romney kind of figure, a moderate Republican, to bring us back and say, this is not who we are. We should eschew this, and we should remember what our principles were. And remember, they're just dormant. They don't go away. Conservatism as a set of values still exists somewhere in the ether, but it is dormant. And so it's not like those values are gone. They're just, the people with the loudest voices just aren't really talking about them as much.
S.E. Cupp, thank you.
Thank you. So good to be on.
Here's my big takeaway from that. S.E.'s point that the Republican Party isn't dead as she knows it, it's just dormant. Parties move in cycles, and yes, this is a very odd cycle for the Republican Party. But the old-fashioned Republican Party still exists. It's a question of when it will make its comeback, not really if.
Based on what? Based on what? Gave zero facts, zero actual information, and just proclaim something. Okay, but you need to actually back up what you're saying. You think that that's the case. Okay, listen, for this to be a serious analysis, wouldn't you have to do an actual breakdown as to what the Trumpian Republican Party believes versus what the establishment Republican Party believes? You would actually need to compare what they're fighting for in order to have a serious conversation about this. They don't do that at all, not even a little bit. They don't even try. So I got bad news for you guys. The establishment the establishment Republican Party is the Trumpian Republican Party. It is. Look at what they're actually fighting for. Look at what they're actually doing. Maybe there are minor differences around the edges, but by and large, we're still an empire. We're still bombing all over the place. We're still doing tax cuts for the rich. We're still doing deregulation. Trump is the establishment's wet dream. He is. He really is. The only thing that they don't like about him is the mean tweets. That's it. That's the only thing they don't like. And if he could just reel it in a little bit, just take it a couple notches down, just lower the volume a tad, stop going after people personally, and just pretend to be presidential, they would love him even more than they love Ronald Reagan. And I mean that. I absolutely mean that. So it's really weird that they seem so convinced that there's this major difference between Trumpian Republicans and establishment Republicans. They're just the same thing with an attitude adjustment. There's the same underlying philosophy. So these guys, they're the worst, man. They're so overpaid. They're such hacks. They don't know anything. By the way, the idea that a Mitt Romney type Republican will come along and make, let everybody know this is not who we are. It's not like there hasn't been tonally those kinds of candidates around. Trump curb stomped all of them in the 2016 primary. Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, John Kasich, all these people represent more of that philosophy, and Trump destroyed them. So because he just takes it to its logical conclusion. When you have, somebody like Mitt Romney say, well, we believe in self-deportation, Like, basically, that means make it as bad as humanly possible for immigrants here so that they want to leave the country. And then you have Trump just take that to its logical conclusion of, how about we just build a wall and don't let any of them in? It's like, well, what do you expect? You guys have laid the groundwork and used he just got rid of the dog whistle and made it a human whistle. That's it. So it's so funny that they pretend like, oh, they're so different. A Trumpian Republican versus an establishment Republican. They're not different. They're not different. He just takes the mask off. And then the other thing is, they have a very, like, end of history analysis going on here. It's like the Republican Party is the Republican Party of John McCain and Mitt Romney, and even tonally, it'll always revert back to that. But why? Why are you so convinced that that's like, oh, that's the end of history of the Republican Party, and anything that goes beyond that is a deviation from it, and eventually it'll revert back? Politics is fluid, guys. It's not stagnant. Politics is always evolving and changing and growing. And, like right now, the growth is all the same policies as the establishment Republicans, plus an attitude adjustment where they're much meaner and in your face. That's what happened. And by the way, you could also thank Fox News. You could also thank Rush Limbaugh for this becoming the dominant strain of ideology and attitude in the Republican Party. And then finally, I'll say, she's so biased. She's in her own little bubble SE cup because she's like, oh, I watch the Democratic debates and I think, well, they're so far left. I'm reminded I'm not a Democrat. And she says it'll take a far left Democrat basically to unite Republicans. My response to that is, it's actually the exact opposite. If you have an odious establishment Democrat, that is more likely to unite Republicans against Democrats. If you have a so-called far left Democrat, that's actually going to chip away, bring in new voters, bring in independent voters, bring in right-leaning voters, bring in a bunch of Republicans as well. Why? It's the populism, stupid. So people, they won't look at Bernie Sanders and be like, oh, he's so far left, I'm scared of him. They'll look at Bernie Sanders and be like, oh, he sounds like he's going to fight for me and like he's honest, even though I might not agree with him on some points. I would definitely vote for that guy over, a cold-blooded Republican who's not going to go nearly as far as Bernie is. So it's the exact opposite. It would unite people around that Democratic candidate if it's a far left Democratic candidate, because those ideas, those policies are really popular. So, I mean, virtually on every single point, they're wrong. And there's, like, the thing that's so frustrating, guys, is it's such a lazy analysis, too. It's like they're not even trying. They're not even trying. Yeah, Trump is an anomaly, and everything will revert back to what it was before, because that's the environment that you're in. You're in an environment where everybody's fake polite to each other. You're in an environment where everybody's wealthy. So, like, those are the things that rub you the wrong way about Trump is, oh my God, the mean tweets, how dare he, oh. So you think like, oh, this has to be an anomaly, this has to be something extra, but obviously we'll go back to the party of, the Mitt Romneys and the John McCains, and all those guys got destroyed because it turns out people hate the establishment of both parties because they haven't been doing anything for them. They've been screwing them for decades now. But they can't tap into that anger. They don't know what's actually going on out there. I mean, overpaid hacks is all I have to say about this.